Hello everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and welcome to something new on this channel. Yes, if you've been looking around the internet, then you know it's that time of the year in which everyone is putting together their best of the year list, and we're going to do the same here on the Professor Thorgy channel. However, if you've watched this channel before, then you know we tend to save all of our best of the year stuff until January, when the year is actually over with. And because we cover everything from the world of geekery on this channel, we are going to talk about the best comics, the best movies, and the best games of 2017. However, we talk about comics every single week on this channel. We talk about movies every single week on this channel. But when it comes to games, we sadly don't get to talk about that as much as I'd like. I wish we could talk about games every single week. However, the video game show on this channel takes so much longer to put together than any of those other shows, so I typically only get to talk about games maybe once a month, and that's a real shame because, in all honesty, I love talking about games more than anything else on this channel. Comics, I'm knowledgeable about. Movies, I'm knowledgeable about. Games, I'm passionate about. I just love talking and geeking out about video games, but as I said, typically whenever I put together a show on a video game, the game has been out for at least a month at that point, and by that point, nobody really wants to talk about the game anymore. So I never really get to discuss games on this channel as much as I want to, but I am going to do a 10 best games of the year list, and I was looking over the list of games I was going to talk about, and I realized I haven't really had time to discuss any of these this year. So what I'm going to do to close out this year and usher in the next year and to lead into our big top 10 list that we're going to be doing all throughout the month of January, I'm just going to have 4 or 5 videos where I just sit down and have a discussion about the games of 2017. And I really feel like we do need to dedicate that many episodes to talking about the games of 2017 because, wow, this was one of the best years for video games I have ever seen in my life. This was one of those years in which there were so many surprises, not just from the little indie guys who always give us surprises, but even the big AAA games brought in surprises. And I know so many people are focusing on the negatives here at the end of the year. What with your loot boxes and your Star Wars and that guy talking about the Oscars and all this. But no, this was actually a stunning year for video games, so I did want to go back and just have one last big geek out about all the stuff that I love from games this year, but also just kind of let you guys know my thoughts on these games before I pick the ones that were going to be in my top 10 games of the year list. I can't really go in there and give you a top 10 list when 8 of those games are ones I haven't talked about at all on this channel. So that's what we're going to do, and we are starting today with an episode where I'm going to talk about all the fighting games that I played this year. Why are we starting with fighting games? Partly because I'm just a big fighting game fan, but also because, in all honesty, I am cramming like crazy right now to play all the games that I missed out on this year. But fighting games? Those are easy. Fighting games I play as soon as they come out, they're in, they're out, they're done. So I can easily talk about these 4 games that we're going to discuss today. Now, as you can probably tell at this point, there is no script to this, there's no format, it's just a discussion, which means I'm probably going to be jumping all over the place. Think of this as a one-man podcast where I just have the games that I'm playing on in the background. If you want something a little bit more structured, a little bit more professional, okay, maybe not professional, but at least structured, then come back later when we actually do the top 10 list. This, as I said, it is just the thoughts coming off the top of my head. It's just me finally getting everything out of my system about all the games that I love this year. And we're going to start with what had to have been my favorite fighting game of the year, Injustice 2. Now, I reviewed this game, and I gave it, I think, a 9 out of 10. It's been a long time since this game came out. I can't exactly remember what my score for it was. However, as the year has gone on, and as I have just seen all the constant support that this game has had, and as I have just returned to this game over and over and over again, no kidding, this is the game I have played the most this year out of anything. This was in 2017 what Overwatch was for me in 2016. It was that game where I just kept coming back and I was addicted to it. I just kept having to play more and more and more. And also after seeing all the amazing DLC for this game, but not DLC that you needed to make it feel like a completed game, they gave us a completed game. This was a full meal, and then they just kept giving us stuff. Listen, I kind of hate what DLC has become for fighting games, where now it's like, well, we can just hold off all the characters that people really want to play and just force them to pay us more for it. Injustice didn't do that. Injustice gave us an amazing roster for an amazing fighting game, and then they just kept giving us more. I'll pay for DLC if it actually feels like it's extra stuff, not the missing piece of a game that you already sold me. But after considering all of that, man, I might actually have to bump this up to a perfect score. I might actually have to go back and change this to being a 10 out of 10. I think, honestly, my only complaint that I had when I played this game was there really is no, like, trial mode in which you can go and learn the combos for all of these characters. But honestly, after playing this for almost a year straight at this point, yeah, the combos are not that hard to learn. You go into practice mode, you can actually experiment around in a way that actually allows you to craft some really cool stuff. I know a lot of people out there have been saying, well, yeah, but I prefer Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite simply because that's my style of fighting game. And I have seen the crazy combos that you can do in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and I will gladly say the combat in that game actually is really darn good. However, after experimenting around with stuff in this game, yeah, I honestly don't see why those people would enjoy that one game and not this game, because the combos that you can do in Injustice are just as insane as in any other game out there. But speaking of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, I'm sure a lot of you out there were hearing me talk about what a complete game this was and all the stuff that it gave us and how it used DLC, and I'm sure a lot of you out there went, yeah, unlike Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. As I said, I might have to go back and change my score for Injustice 2 up to being a perfect score, and part of that is because I was just so disappointed in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. I looked at that game and went, oh, here's how a bad fighting game with comic book characters is. And don't get me wrong, I know people are going to say, oh, but the combat is really darn good in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Yes, when I did my review of Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, I had to give it 2 scores. And the score for the combat was a 9. A 9 out of 10. It is close to perfect. It is incredibly fast-paced and over-the-top, which is exactly what a Marvel vs. Capcom fighting game system should be, and it flows so darn well. Like, I looked at the combat in this game and I kept thinking there has to be some crazy broken thing that people have found to do with this, and indeed there are, but nothing that felt unfair. There was some stuff in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 that I looked at and went, well, that just seems unfair. Like, they didn't think about that when they were testing this out. They're gonna have to go in there and nerf some of these guys. In this one, no. The way that they have it so that you can come in and counter your opponent's attacks, it does feel like they actually thought this stuff out. They actually found a way to balance everyone pretty darn well. However, aside from that, that game was disappointing in almost every single way. If you're a Marvel fan, if you're a Capcom fan, I can't really imagine you just being satisfied with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite unless you just cared about the combat. And listen, it's a fighting game. I can understand somebody saying, well, what else is there to it? So yeah, if that's all you want, great, awesome. But man, looking back over at Injustice, how it gave us a story mode that was actually really damn good. It wasn't just, well, I guess we just have to put it in there. It's one of the best story modes I've ever seen in a fighting game. In fact, I'm going to go into minor spoilers here, but if you have played the game, you know that moment that this was all leading up to, in which everybody just tune out for like 3 minutes here if you have not played the game. But when it gets to that point where at the very end of this, you see Batman and Superman teaming up again. It's the world's finest. They're going in there to save the day, but then they turn on each other again, and you have to pick who you're going to play as. And I picked Batman, of course, because in the Injustice universe, Superman is evil, and I didn't want to play that. So I picked Batman, and it all comes down to Batman having to fight Superman, and then they have that little exchange about, do you remember the night that you told me that Lois was pregnant? And I was like, oh my god, at the very end, they just jabbed that little emotional nail into your heart. Oh, it fit so damn well. And also, you play this game, and it is just a game for DC fans. Like, it's a really solid storyline, no matter who you are. But if you're just a DC fan, seeing things in there like when the Reverse Flash popped up to have to fight Barry because Superman's regime killed one of his ancestors, so now he's stuck out of the timeline, I was like, oh shoot, that's actually kind of a cool thing to do with this character. But also, all the little fan service things that they did with like the costumes, how you could customize the costumes, and each of their costumes was like a reference to something else from their history. Like, a lot of the color patterns that you could give them were named after other characters or after specific storylines for these characters. Or the thing that blew my mind the most, they actually went in there and made sure that everybody had a unique dialogue exchange with every other character. And I know some of the DLC characters, they had to cheat their way around that. They couldn't go back in there and get everybody to come back into the booth and record stuff all over again. But they still found some pretty darn good ways to cheat around that. But they were able to do that. And again, I just look over at Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and how I loved that they gave dialogue exchanges to them in 3. And then they still had that in this one, but there was less of it. And all I could think was, oh my god, Injustice decided, you know what? Let's take that thing that people like and give them more of it. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite gave us less of it. That's the reason why I keep looking at Injustice 2. I'm like, I might have to bump this up to a 10 because I didn't realize how much it succeeded until I saw something that failed. Like, a perfect example of what I'm talking about is that a year ago when Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was announced, I made a top 20 list of the Marvel characters and of the Capcom characters I want to see. And for Marvel, my number 1 pick wasn't even a character, it was legacy skins. I wanted them to go in there and give us alternate skins for several of the Marvel characters that would turn them into other characters. They would fight exactly the same way, they would move the exact same way, their combos would be exactly the same, so you wouldn't have to go in there and program in a brand new character, but they would look like another character, and you would then get a voiceover actor to come in there and record brand new dialogue for this brand new character, treating it like an actual brand new character. And I know a lot of people listened to that and was like, that's way too much work, they would never do that. And then Injustice 2 did that exact thing. That's the thing that drives me nuts about this. They actually took my crazy, super geeky idea that seemed impossible. I was like, oh, okay, we can do that. Totally. Like, I play that game as Jay freaking Garrick. There's a fighting game where I can play as Jay Garrick, and they didn't just dress Barry Allen up as Jay Garrick. They got a voiceover actor to come in there, record dialogue for Jay Garrick, and then get all the other actors in there to record dialogue exchanges with Jay Garrick. That's insane to me that they did that. I mean, I absolutely love playing as Raiden, not because I like playing as Raiden from Mortal Kombat, but because I like playing as Black Lightning. They actually put Black Lightning in this game, and they didn't just slap a Black Lightning skin on Raiden. They got a voice actor to be Black Lightning. They thought up dialogue for Black Lightning. They had the other characters have exchanges with Black Lightning. They even changed his super move animation around a little bit to make it unique to Black Lightning. It's incredible to me that they did that much work with this. And also, it's not just Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite that made me look back at Injustice and love it so much. It's also Star Wars Battlefront 2, because everybody lost their mind over the loot boxes in that game, and rightfully so. I'm not going to get into that here because everybody has talked about that enough, but yeah, man, it's absolute BS what Star Wars Battlefront 2 did. And it is kind of BS what everybody else is doing with the loot box system. I like it in Overwatch, but I like it in Overwatch because it's all cosmetic stuff. I like it because it doesn't actually affect the gameplay in any way, and you actually can earn those loot boxes in the game. It's really hard to earn them in Overwatch. You have to play for about an hour to get one of them. But, you know, as I said, it's all cosmetic. That's fine. In Injustice, yes, there are loot boxes. And the stuff that you get in them, they are cosmetic because they do change the way that your character looks, but they also give you buffs. They actually do change the way that you play the game. In fact, there are some times in which you actually unlock abilities for these characters. And it's like, you know what? When I reviewed this game, I actually looked at it and went, you know what? I can't give you too many points on that because as fun as it is to unlock these loot boxes, the fact that they actually do alter the way that you play the game, I can see that being kind of unfair for other players out there. I can see it being like, well, I really like this character, but I couldn't get any good equipment for him. I mean, yeah, that is kind of a BS scenario in which you could be really good at a character, you could play him a lot, but because other people out there just happen to get lucky and they get equipment for their character that makes them stronger, suddenly you're at a disadvantage if you just didn't get lucky and happen to unlock equipment for your guy. However, that was the argument I made when this game came out. I've been playing this thing for, 8 months now at this point? And honestly, if you can level your character all the way up to level 20, get them maxed out, which in theory, is what you would do with your main characters in the game, because you would be playing them the most. If you can do that, and you still haven't unlocked 5 pieces of epic gear that just makes them at their full power, I don't know what to tell you, because this game makes it so easy to get everything you could possibly want for these characters. The fact that they have a multiverse system in here, in which they give you brand new challenges every couple of hours. Dear God, in a day and age in which Capcom is trying to eliminate the single player experience from fighting games, they just came in here and went, oh, we will give you single player experiences every couple hours that are constantly changing and are constantly giving you massive rewards. When they give you that, as well as the 3 daily challenges every single day, as well as mini challenges in every single match that you can use to unlock loot boxes. As I said, when I play Overwatch, I get about 1 loot box an hour. I get about 20 an hour playing this game. And you can't buy loot boxes. You can buy them with the in-game currency, but you can't buy the in-game currency. You have to earn the in-game currency. The only thing that you can actually buy with real money in this game are the source crystals, which you can use to unlock new skins for these characters. You know, things like the Jay Garrick skin or the Vixen skin for Cheetah. You can use real world money to unlock that cosmetic stuff, but you can't use it to buy the loot boxes which contain the buffs. So the only way that you can get these loot boxes that contain the buffs is if you actually play the game. And as I said, they give you so many ways to get really good stuff for these characters. Again, it is all luck in the loot boxes, but then the multiverse systems, every couple of days will be like, oh, what character do you play? Blue Beetle? Guess what? Today, there's a multiverse where you just unlock epic gear for Blue Beetle every single match. That's it. Go in there, play that, get your guy buffed up. Yeah, in the first month of playing this game, I could see that being nothing but luck. I could see it being, oh, I happen to get this really nice item for this character that I like, so now I'm even better with that character. But now, I'd say about after the 3 or 4 month period, everybody who has played this game would have played it so much, you would have massive epic gear for every single character as good as you could possibly imagine them to be. And again, you could only earn it by playing the game. You couldn't earn it by just going in there and spending money. That is freaking amazing that in the year when everyone looked at loot boxes and said what BS they were, Injustice 2 found the way to make them good, to do it actually right. They actually gave you dozens of loot boxes every single hour. They actually made the way that you earn them fun, and you had to earn them. You couldn't just spend money on them. It was fun cosmetic stuff, but it also did give you a buff, but it gave you so many of them that everybody was kind of guaranteed to get buffs for the characters that they wanted. It is just stunning to me how so many other games this year screwed up almost every single thing that was in the Injustice game, and yet Injustice did it right. But okay, that's enough gushing over the Injustice game. It is, I can't hide it, it is definitely my favorite fighting game of the year. It will be on my top 10 list. I will not say where, but it is going to be on there. But I briefly did talk about Marvel vs. Capcom. Let's go back and talk about it again. As I said, I just want to make it clear. The combat in this game is sick. It is stunning. I am blown away by the crazy stuff that you can do in the combat of this game. However, oh my god, it's just such a flat, bland game aside from the combat. I describe this as being a really good cheese pizza. You know, the bread is good, the cheese is good, the sauce is good. All the basic ingredients that you need to make a pizza, they're there and they're good. But dude, I want some pepperonis, I want some ham, I want some onions, I want some peppers, I want toppings on this thing, and this game has no toppings. The closest thing it has to toppings is the story mode, and dear God, this story mode is terrible. This is bad. I mentioned that Injustice 2 probably has the best story mode I've seen in a fighting game. This has got one of the worst. I mean, you have these realities merged together, but the story starts 2 months after they've been merged together. We never really see what it was like when they merged together. At one point, like 2/3 of the way through the game, we actually do hear that, oh, Thanos is going to gather the Infinity Gems, but the Reality Gem went into this other reality, so he has to go and he talks to Sigma, and he sends Ultron there to get it, because Ultron is a robot. So it's like, alright, I can understand that. And then after Ultron and Sigma are like, oh, we should really team up together and work together, they then just take the gem and go, yes, merging the realities, and then bam, that's it. We don't actually see what's happened, and all I could think was, there is such a better story to tell with how these realities merge together, of what happens when they actually came together. Plus, also, this is a very small complaint that I have, but it's something that has always bugged me about these Marvel vs. Capcom games, which is that they always treat the Capcom universe like it's the exact same universe, like all the Capcom games exist in the exact same world, and all I can think is, you mean to tell me that Resident Evil is happening in the same world as Mega Man? And okay, that's not the best example because Mega Man happens in the future, so you could say, okay, well, they're across different timelines. But okay, better example, Resident Evil and Street Fighter exist in the same reality. If that was the case, don't you think that M. Bison might have at some point in time said, oh, Shadowloo should really start hiring some of these Umbrella guys. Maybe they know what they're doing. I mean, in Resident Evil 6, all of China got overtaken by a new zombie virus. You don't think that maybe Chun-Li would have something to say about that? But as I mentioned, in this game, the realities get merged together, and it just drove me nuts that we don't see those confrontations. Like, there's a moment where Dante meets Ghost Rider and says, hey, Ghost Rider, I haven't seen you since the Convergence. And I was like, that would have been way more interesting to see. I mean, Dante, the Devil Hunter, the guy who hunts down demons, you don't think it would be kind of interesting to see the first time he runs into Ghost Rider? You don't think there's a cool story to tell there? But again, I just have no idea how this new universe works. We know that the Marvel locations have merged together with the Capcom locations, but did their timelines merge? Did their histories merge? Because like you have Spider-Man calling Mike Hagar Mr. Mayor, and it was like, okay, well, even if he isn't his mayor, he is a mayor, so I could see Peter saying something like that. But then you have Black Panther calling Wakanda Valconda. So does he just think that's what his nation has always been called because the timelines merged? Or is he just being really polite to the people from Valhalla who now don't have a home and are living in Wakanda? Because, dude, I am such a Black Panther fan. I love that character. I love Wakanda. And to see him finally in a Marvel vs. Capcom game gets me so excited. But every single time that I hear him say, for Valconda, I'm like, oh, you just killed me. You just killed me all over again. Every single time that I see him in combat, I get really excited. Like, oh, he's finally here. We finally got Black Panther for the glory of Valconda. Oh. Screw it. I'm going to go back to playing Injustice. They treat these characters right. Speaking of Black Panther, that is the most unoriginal character they put in this game. Black Panther in the comics, he's got his claws, he's got energy daggers, he's got stealth suits, he's got giant mechs, he's got an army at his beck and call, he has got a staff of the most well-trained assassins on Earth working underneath him. What does he have in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite? Claws. That's it. All of his special moves, claws. All of his super moves, claws. All of it is just him running around and slashing people. I was like, for his level 3 super, he just slashes people even more. You mean to tell me nobody there thought it might be cool to see, I don't know, him summon out the Panther God or take people into the realm of the dead and have all of his ancestors attack him? Or have him summon in the Dora Milaje assassins to go in there and mess up the opponent? Something like that. He doesn't even throw freaking energy daggers as an attack in this game. Hawkeye got an energy dagger in this. Hawkeye just shoots arrows, and they still gave him something to throw aside from an arrow. Black Panther, just claws. And it really kind of reeks to me that it's like, man, yeah, they just wanted a Wolverine ripoff in there because they didn't want to put Wolverine in the game because he was an X-Men. And that's the other thing. So many people who don't even follow all of the Marvel and Fox stuff going on, they could just look at this and just go, there's no X-Men, there's no Doctor Doom, I know exactly what happened. And this game just reeked of business decisions. Like, there's a story that came out, and it's just a rumor, I don't know if it's true, but basically the story was that they wanted to have Edward Falcon from the Power Stone series in this game on the Capcom side, and Marvel said no, because maybe one day in the future, they might put Sam Wilson the Falcon, their character, into the game, and they didn't want two Falcons, and apparently Capcom just caved on it. This game really reeks to me of a bunch of boardroom members on the Marvel side who didn't understand the fun of Marvel vs. Capcom and the point of Marvel vs. Capcom, going up to Capcom, who were all hurting and scared and really needed a win after Street Fighter V, and they just told them, this is the way it's going to be, and the Capcom guys were like, whatever you say, boss. Listen, you guys, you're footing the bill on this one, and we kind of need this money right now. So, yeah, we'll completely mess this game up and not give anybody what they want in it, just so that way you will be nice to us and let us make this game. And that's the other thing about this. The roster in this game, I'm sorry, I'm not apologizing for this anymore. This roster sucks. You can come in here and tell me, well, it's got 30 characters. That's a lot. Not for a Marvel vs. Capcom game. And even if it only had 30 characters, I'd be okay with that if at least 15 of them were new. Dear God, the amount of new characters in here is pathetic. And what makes it the most pathetic is that just after this game came out, they released 6 new DLC characters, and I just looked at those 6 brand new DLC characters and thought, if they had been in this game right from the start, this would have sold so much better. Capcom is basically coming in here and trying to get blood from a stone by saying, okay, the people who bought this game, we're just going to keep releasing characters over and over and over again as DLC to get them to keep buying these characters. And in all honesty, I'm actually okay with that, because Marvel vs. Capcom should be a giant fan fest. It should basically just be a bunch of characters that people love from these universes coming together over and over again. I wouldn't mind if at some point in time, 5 or 6 years in the future, there were 80 characters in this game. If they just kept putting out characters over and over and over again, so that way, no matter what Capcom character you're a fan of or what Marvel character you're a fan of, you can get those characters in this game. However, you have to start with a good base. And when I look at the DLC characters, especially the DLC characters that were rumored and hinted at by some very trustworthy sources, I look at those and go, if you just put half these guys in this game from the start, this would have been a top 10 seller. This would have been a game that everybody would have been going out there to play. And instead, nobody really bought this. The sales on this have been horrendous. This has been a massive loss, and they're really hoping, they are really trying hard to get the people who did play this game to keep playing it over and over and over again with continuous DLC. And man, that would work so much better if you actually gave us something that we wanted to play in the beginning. And there's such a small amount of people playing this game right now. You need to come in here and just give us some of these characters free. Like, you need to come in here and give us the next 6 characters free and just make them the characters that everybody was missing. You don't have to make them brand new characters. Just make them those characters that everybody was like, why are they not in here? Like, give us Wolverine, give us Deadpool, give us Magneto, give us Dr. Doom, give us several people from the Capcom side. And then after that, yeah, if you gave us those for free, I'd be way more willing to come in here and start spending some money on the DLC new characters. But also, one last thing that I have to talk about, and this is a spoiler for the story mode. I mentioned this in the review, but the game ends with a massive cliffhanger of, oh, we're not done. There's going to be a second season to the story mode. And I just think it is laughably gutsy that Capcom made a game that really just upset everyone who wanted something out of this game more than just, hey, let's go online and play against other people. Which, again, I understand there is that part of the fighting game community that is all that they care about. And if that's all you care about, awesome, great. You got an amazing game in here. But you can't just sell a game to those people. And they tried doing that with Street Fighter V, and they massively screwed the pooch on it. And their sales have been low on, and they've been trying to make up for it since then. And I'll admit, it does look like they're kind of making up for it. I actually am kind of excited for Street Fighter V Arcade Edition that's coming out next year. But how gutsy of Capcom was it that they saw this kind of thing screw up with Street Fighter V, and then they came in here, and again, kind of really just made a game that upset those casual fans all over again, and then ended the story mode with, to be continued. That's right, you're coming back for part 2, right? Guys? Hello? Cricket chirp, cricket chirp. Yeah, this game, Thanos, out of nowhere, he decides he wants to get revenge on Lady Death for kind of manipulating him into merging these realities together. So he just out of nowhere invents a gauntlet that then sucks the Satsui no Hado the Dark Hado out of Ryu, and then the game ends, post-credit stinger, with him going up to Lady Death and Jeddah, and then he just goes, the Satsui no Hado should be able to deal with you, and then he starts to form a Hadouken in his hand. I was like, you know, if you had told me that in this game I was going to see Thanos get possessed by the Dark Hado, and he was going to do a Hadouken, I would think that is the coolest damn thing. Like, I want to see crazy crossover stuff like that. I want to see you do wacky stuff with these characters kind of merging together. That sounds exactly right up my alley, and nothing sums up this game more than it ended on that, and I just looked at it and went, are you kidding me? For real, Capcom? Man, I don't care about this at all, and it's kind of insulting that you just assumed after making a game like this we were all going to be coming back for a cliffhanger ending. But I kind of still hope that this game can get its crap together. I kind of still hope that this game can fix itself. I am kind of hoping that Capcom can come in here and create Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite Arcade Edition, and they can actually turn out here something that people will be happy with. But I'm not. My hopes aren't high. I guess that's the best way of putting it. It is possible, because I do love Marvel vs. Capcom. That is my fighting game franchise. And I have thought so many times about coming in here and just doing a, like, dream roster episode of Game Room, or doing, like, I pitched the new story mode for this game. But, man, I don't even think people care about this game at all at this point. And I know it's not going to happen. I know that we're not going to get something that will make me go, oh, well, it actually all did work out in the end. Yeah, this was a massive disappointment for me. But okay, let's move on to the final two fighting games I am going to talk about. And the first one is a total surprise, ARMS. Yes, ARMS, aside from just having a really cool theme song that I will be playing in the background here, ARMS was a very charming surprise. Because I looked at ARMS and I thought, ooh, this looks kind of stupid, in all honesty. I mean, it's lots of motion controls, which have never been that great on these Nintendo games. I mean, they were better than what everyone else was doing, but still, the motion controls on Nintendo games were always like, yeah, we figured this out. And it's like, no, you kind of haven't. But also, it just looked kind of basic to me. Like, it didn't look as interesting as other fighting games out there, which, I mean, it's motion control. I've played motion control fighting games. They're never that good. But even just the design of the characters, when the game started, like Springman or whatever his name is, the protagonist of this series, and Ribbon Girl, I looked at them and I was like, yeah, it's really just kind of basic character designs. But then as the game went along, and we started getting introduced to different characters, I actually started to dig the character designs. I mean, they've got a giant mummy in there. That guy's awesome. They've got a girl who doesn't have spring arms, but she still wants to compete in this spring arms championship, so she built herself like a junker mech with spring arms. I was like, okay, that's actually kind of fun. That's cool in there. You've got this celebrity who doesn't fight with her hands, she fights with her hair. Oh, it's like, oh, okay, doing some new stuff in here. Actually, by the end of this, I actually did like these character designs. And when I actually tried the game out, the motion controls actually work. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the motion controls are actually a ton of fun in this game. And the way that you can also customize like each of the characters' arms and give them different weapons that will have different abilities when you throw a punch, it actually adds a lot of variety to this. Like, I found it very interesting that they found a way to basically say, we can't give these characters super moves, so we're just going to make every punch its own unique super move. That's actually kind of a brilliant way to approach a motion control fighting game. So yeah, I played this game when it came out, and honestly, I just found it to be really darn charming. Which shouldn't come as a surprise. It's a Nintendo game. Charm is the thing that Nintendo knows how to do. And I have been encouraging Nintendo for years now to start brand new IPs. Like Splatoon was a massive hit for them. So I still wanted to support this game even though I wasn't sure of it when it came out. Because it's like, alright, it's Nintendo creating new characters. We need Nintendo to do that. And yeah, I can actually see these guys sticking around. I think it sold pretty darn well, at least for a launch title it did, which I know it wasn't technically a launch title, but it was close enough. I think it did sell pretty well, so if they decide to come back in here and make more ARMS games, I'd actually be excited for that. And even if they don't, I do kind of want to see these characters stick around. Like, I would actually love to see some of these characters pop up in the next Super Smash Bros. Game, which you would be crazy to not do that. I mean, it's a Nintendo fighting game. How do you not have them pop up in another Nintendo fighting game? But here's the thing that impressed me the most with this game. When I picked it up, I liked these characters, I liked the combat, I thought it was unique, and I thought this entire world was just flat out charming, but I didn't think there was a lot there. Like, it's no surprise that the Switch was something that Nintendo made because the Wii U was not selling well, so they had to work fast to get this thing out there, and I'm honestly shocked that the Switch works as well as it does for something that they did have to rush out there. I mean, it's stunning to me that that thing is just not loaded with bugs and actually does work as well as they said it would work. But when ARMS came out, I was like, yeah, they needed stuff on this console. They didn't have enough time to make new stuff for it. So it's kind of a bare game. There's not really a lot here. But when it came to that time in which I had to go back and start looking at some of these games again so that I could think about what would be on my best games of the year list, I decided, you know what, I'll pick up ARMS again, just so that I can have some stuff to say about, just to test it out again. And oh my gosh, in the time since this game originally came out, and since the time when I first put this game down and decided to stop playing it, they added 4 DLC characters to this game for free. I just got done talking about how Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite created DLC characters solely because they knew you would buy them because you needed them in order to make that game feel complete. This game, yeah, it didn't quite feel complete, so they gave you free stuff until it did. I didn't even hear about some of these new characters. I heard about the clown girl, I heard about the robot guy, but I didn't know they also add in there the boss from the game as a DLC character, and some Aztec dude who is just really darn cool. They're all in here, and they're free, and Nintendo says, oh yeah, we still have more stuff coming. There's still more free stuff in here. But they went in, they add in there some new stages, they add in there like a new combat style in there, they also add in their badges, they add an achievement system to this game, and you guys know me, I am kind of a completionist, I do love me some achievements. In fact, it kind of drives me nuts that the Switch doesn't have its own built-in trophy or achievement thing like all the other consoles out there does, especially when its own games keep giving you their own in-game achievement system. But yeah, I looked at that and I was like, oh my god, I can earn badges by doing things in here and then customize my online profile with these badges. How did I not know that this was a thing? Yeah, I feel like more people need to be talking about the fact that ARMS does what we want fighting games to do. They came in here and gave you free content. They kept giving you free content because they were like, no, we want to make this game feel whole. We want to make the people who bought this game get extra stuff for being so loyal to this company. So yeah, I don't know if that's going to end up on my top 10 of the year list, but I just had to come in here one last time and just applaud this game. Just come in here and say, holy cow guys, you did what I thought no other company would do because I thought all companies out there were just too greedy. You gave me free content, and in a fighting game where there really should be more free content. In the day and age when every single fighting game out there is trying to nickel and dime you, I was just stunned that Nintendo did this, so kudos to you guys. Now, the last game that I'm going to talk about is Tekken 7. And wow, Tekken 7 is a mixed bag. Like, it's got problems. Like, the arcade mode is kind of weak in this game. I mean, there's only a couple of matches in there, and then after you fight the boss, it just goes, that's it, that's the end. It's like, no character things. That's kind of odd. And what they did to kind of substitute for the character endings in arcade mode is they gave each character a story mode. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm going to get to fight through different characters in here and get little bits of story in between every single one of the matches for these characters. No, every single one of the character story modes is one fight. That's it. And then there is an ending for each of these characters, and it is the appropriate amount of goofy that you would expect from a Tekken franchise. But, yeah, man, it feels light. It does not feel like an accurate substitute for giving these characters like a fully fleshed out story mode or giving them an actual arcade mode. The arcade mode and a lot of the single player experiences in here, they do feel kind of light. However, just because those two areas seem to be lacking doesn't mean that there isn't still a decent amount of single player experiences in here, especially when it comes to all the unlockables. Again, speaking of video games that just try not to give you anything, try to make them as bare bones as possible so that way you'll keep spending money, I was actually pretty darn impressed with all the stuff that you were able to unlock in this game. Tekken has always been pretty good about that, and this one continues to be pretty good about it. But it is a fighting game, and when it comes to a fighting game, the most important thing is the combat. And listen, I've always been a Capcom guy. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, Darkstalkers if you want to go really far back, hell, Power Stone. I always loved Capcom fighting games, but I was also a big fan of the NetherRealm games. Those were my two big franchises that were constantly going back and forth. But Tekken was always kind of my side fighting game. I wasn't the biggest fan, but I did return to it every now and again, and whenever I returned to it, I had a good time. I always enjoyed it. And when I played the fighting in this game, I forgot how much fun Tekken is. I really forgot that every single time I pick it up, it is a blast. Like the crazy ass combos that you can do in a Tekken game, not even like having to memorize 1,000 different combinations, but just being able to kind of tell what you need to do next just through instinct. Just basically by playing it and then going, okay, I've got them in a juggle, so if I hit this button, then I can continue the juggle, and then after I get them into the wall, I can hit this button to continue pounding on them into the wall. Stuff like that. Tekken has always been that franchise that you don't need to learn the most complex combos. You can kind of just customize them there as you're playing. And this game is no exception. You can do the same thing in here. There were so many matches where I would be losing, getting my butt kicked, and then I was able to just do crazy combos there at the end, get them against the wall, and turn the whole thing around. That's the thing that I enjoyed the most about the Tekken combat system, is just the fact that you never know who's going to win. It really isn't over until it's over. There's no other fighting game out there where you can be absolutely 90% behind in the life totals, and then you still come around and win. But the thing that I love the most about this game, while at the same time being the most frustrating thing about this game, was the actual story mode. I don't mean the character story modes where it was all one match each. I mean the actual story mode proper of the game, in which it was all about the fall of Heihachi. I keep talking about, story modes in fighting games, about how great it was in Injustice and how bad it was in Marvel. This one is also really damn good, especially if you are a Tekken fan. If you care about these characters, if you have followed their journey all the way from the start until now, this game is Heihachi's swan song. The guy who has been the big main antagonist of the entire franchise, it is his last stand. And what I love about that is that Heihachi is actually, I think, died twice in this franchise already, but each time it was like, ah ha ha, I wasn't really dead. You fools, you thought I died. Nothing can kill Heihachi. No, he dies in this. He is done. This is the end of Heihachi, and they treat it like that. This entire story is basically Heihachi and his son Kazuya basically having one last brawl at each other. It is both of them just amassing their armies, just ready to go at each other, and it really explores Heihachi's past. And one of the things I said was so frustrating about this story mode was the narrator, because you do follow this story through a faceless narrator who is trying to basically find out the backstory of Heihachi. And it's kind of cool to think that, oh yeah, throughout all this time, people still think Heihachi is just a legitimate businessman. This guy is actually trying to uncover it and expose his story to the world. There's actually some stakes there. But holy cow, that narrator is terrible. That narrator just speaks in the most flat tone about everything. Holy cow, could you not actually get somebody who knew how to emote? I mean, wow, I typically hate criticizing actors because I'm a terrible actor. But yeah, man, you have to point out in here, it is laughably dull. But it is still a cool concept that Heihachi's story is finally going to be told to the world. And you actually find out new stuff about Heihachi. Like, you always knew that Heihachi killed his wife, Kazuya's mother. I'm sorry if I'm going to slur that name a couple times. That Heihachi killed his wife. And it was like, oh, that's so evil. Here, you finally see it from his point of view. And you finally learn that his wife basically had the devil gene that was going to be passed down into Kazuya and into Jin. And it was like, oh, so the reason why those guys can turn into demons, it comes from the mother. And the mother knew this. And the mother basically hooked up with Heihachi just so that they could create the ultimate demon children. And now that that's happened, they don't really need Heihachi around anymore. And she's like, well, yeah, but you might try and kill him one day if he becomes too evil, so I have to kill you first. So it's revealed, oh, the reason why Heihachi killed his wife was because she was a demon trying to kill him first. And that fight scene against her, in which as you're fighting, you just see flashbacks to like them actually falling in love, them getting married, it was actually kind of touching. It was a cool way of doing that. And then that all leads up to Heihachi and Kazuya having one last brawl inside an active volcano. You can't come up with a better setting for their final fight. And I love that there were like 3 or 4 stages to this battle. You keep going in there and having to fight Kazuya as Heihachi, and then at the end when it's like, oh, I finally got him down, he rises back up and he accesses some of his devil powers, and then Heihachi has to call on his inner strength some more. And I love that at the end of it, the final form that you have to fight him in, Kazuya is full on devil mode, and Heihachi only has a sliver of life, but through sheer force of will, Heihachi has amped up his defense and his attack to a crazy amount, so even though you only have a sliver of life, all of Devil Kazuya's powers are just doing little tiny bits of damage to you. So it's like your entire life bar has been shrunk down to a tiny amount. Basically, you still have a full life bar when you go into that fight, but they were able to make it feel like, okay, you only have this much life left, but you were just pushing your way through this battle. They were able to capture that feeling. And I mentioned how in the fight between Heihachi and his wife, they put in all these flashbacks, but you had never actually seen these flashbacks. They were all new things that they created for the storyline. I love that in this final fight, when you have Heihachi going up against Kazuya, they have actual flashbacks from the old games. They didn't bump up the graphics, they didn't change it to make it look brand new. They used the actual graphics from the old games to put in their flashbacks of the interactions between these guys over the course of 6 other games. That was so effective. If you are a fan of this franchise, it did make it feel like this is the end. This is the final battle between these guys. And just step back and think about how far you've come. Think about everything that led up to this moment. And as we all know, the whole thing between these two guys started when Heihachi beat the crap out of him as a kid and then tossed his son down a mountain and just said, yeah, you gotta climb back up if you want to be up here. And this thing ends with Kazuya delivering one final blow to Heihachi, killing him, and then he walks to the edge of this volcano and throws his dad in there. It comes full circle. That was a great way to end this. And I know a lot of people criticize that they just shoved Akuma into this story mode. And yeah, it feels weird that this is Heihachi's swan song and they put in here a character from another fighting game. It just feels odd. However, when I realized, oh, this really is the end of Heihachi, and then after they announced that Geese, another famous final boss from another fighting game franchise, was going to be DLC for this game, I stopped looking at Akuma as being a weird addition, and I looked at him like, oh, I get it. This is the end, the swan song, for one of the most famous fighting game villains of all time. This is like the fighting game equivalent of going to his funeral. It's all the other big baddies from all the other fighting games out there basically coming to pay respect to Heihachi. That's why they're in this game. But also they were able to come up with a way to kind of explain Akuma in here. They were actually able to tie him into the story because it explains how Heihachi had to go back and kill his wife because she had been overcome by the devil powers. And it shows us that his wife basically realized, yeah, listen, I'm gonna have to fight him. And if I can't kill him, I need a backup plan. So Akuma, you owe me one. If I die, you have to kill Heihachi instead. So yeah, they actually had this guest character actually play into the storyline in a way that I actually bought. However, I will go and say, the Shin Akuma fight, the optional fight at the end, in which you are Devil Kazuya, and you have to fight this super-powered Akuma, that's cheap as hell. That fight was horrible. I mean, as far as the cinematics of it go, as far as the story goes, it's epic. It looks damn cool. But yeah, man, it was one of the most frustrating battles I have ever done in my life. I beat it, but I have no shame in admitting I had to go down to easy mode on that thing because it is the cheapest fight I've ever experienced in a fighting game. More than Shao Kahn in the old Mortal Kombat games where he would just rush you nonstop. This is easily the most broken final boss I've ever encountered. But I did it, and I got a platinum on this game because, gosh darn it, despite the problems with it, it was so darn fun. So I honestly don't know if that one's going to be on my 10 best of the year list, because I do have problems with it. But God, just as somebody who even was a casual fan of the Tekken franchise, That story mode actually felt really darn epic, and the combat is still insanely fun, and there's so much to unlock, and it just looks gorgeous. This is an amazing looking game. So yeah, as I said, I just kind of want to have a discussion about these games over the next couple of these episodes, and part of it is just so that I can get all my thoughts straight, just so that I can really say what I want to say about these games, and maybe that will help me form my final opinion for my Game of the Year list. And I think that's what happened today. I think I now kind of know where I want to put some of these games. So let me know what you thought about these games in the comments down below. As I said, we're doing about 3 more of these episodes, as I'm going to talk about all the Nintendo games that came out this year, all the indie games that came out this year, all the AAA games that came out this year. Maybe I'll do one specifically for RPGs, because I played a lot of those. But yeah, if you want to see those, or you want to see the actual top 10 list when they actually come out, make sure that you click that subscribe button. Also, if you just want to see more episodes like this, as I said, this is something brand new. There's no structure to this. There's no script. It's just me out here spitballing the stuff that I want to say about these games. But I do want to do more stuff about video games on this channel. So this actually is probably the easiest thing for me to do about video games. Just something where I just sit up here and actually just talk about them. If you want to see more stuff like that, let me know. Or if you want to see me stick to like a structure. If you want to see me actually stick to like, okay, here is the script for this episode. Here is what I want to say. Let me know that as well in the comments down below. Or on Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr at Professor Thorgy. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time.